Hello and welcome to the Academy of Worship podcast. My name is Chris Davis.
I'm Lauren Levasseur.
And we are super happy to have you with us today, this evening, this morning. It depends on when you're listening to us. Right now we're recording and it's pitch black outside and we're comfy in small door studio. Just loving our little spaces.
Yep.
We have an interesting thing today that I think when Lauren and I were talking about it, it was it got our juices flowing. I think because we turned into the old guys that are like whippersnappers. So
I contacted Chris. Stupid internet. So yeah,
I think you'll hear some of that come out in this podcast. So right out of the gates, we want to apologize to basically anyone that's not our age. I don't know that if you're a hipster, if you're what is it, a millennial?
Yeah,
millennials. Yeah. We're not doing this to just make you mad, but I'm hoping that this will be educational in some way, shape, or form, or you'll just turn off the podcast and you never want to hear us again. So, so what are we talking about today, Lauren?
So I recently joined the Gear Talk Praise and Worship.
Yes, on Facebook.
And it's a great place to gather stuff for the podcast.
It really is. They like to hit lots of topics. So anyone out there who's a part of that, shout out. It's a cool community.
Yeah. So I saw this one post, and just it was basically a screenshot of somebody's conversation on a phone.
Right.
And it was between somebody looked like it was probably just a general parishioner to what was probably the
worship leader. Yeah.
And just their interaction back and forth, I thought was just kind of funny. But then the comments underneath were just ridiculous.
Right.
As it goes.
Right.
And it just prompted me to just sit down at my computer and just unload my brain onto this thing. I ended up typing just straight for about a half an hour before I realized I should be working right now. So,
and I think that people right now are struggling because we haven't said what the topic is going to be. However, I do want to put one disclaimer in here, other than the whole millennial offense thing or whatever we're going to say. I don't want. I want to first say that nothing in the Gear Talk Praise and Worship group, we're not blaming that group or anything. So if anyone's listening that happens to run that or whatever, like that is not on you.
No.
It's just these topics sometimes come up. Everyone knows it's a part of it. It's just
it just shone a light on something that I actually have witnessed before, and so like, you know what, we got to talk about that because I find this to be dumb.
Right. And the topic is this. Millennials are dumb. No, I'm kidding. That's not the topic. I just felt like I had already set that up, so I should offend somebody right off the bat.
Well, the little clicky linky should have shown them what the name is.
That's true. But now you know what the name is. So it's the song Good, Good Father that was written by House Fires, I believe. And I apologize if I'm screwing this up. But has recently been made much more famous or known or whatever in the broader spectrum of listeners by Chris Tomlin. Mm-hmm. And Lauren, you jump in if I'm wrong, but the screenshot that you saw was a parishioner texting the worship leader or whomever and saying, hey, there's this new awesome song by Chris Tomlin called Good Good Father, and it'd be awesome if you guys played it. And the worship leader responded, well, it's actually by House Fires, and we've been playing it for the past 3 Sundays.
Yeah.
And so that, of course, was the screenshot, and it wasn't in of itself bad.
That's kind of funny, really.
It really is.
Kind of the dig of okay, well, informationally, it's this person, and the dig is we've played it the last 2 Sundays. Yeah. Were you there?
Yeah, that's the part that did get me laughing. Yeah, I'm like, wow, how oblivious is that person? But I think that, like you said, the responses and the outpouring of hate or whatever you want to call it on this whole thing underneath it in the comments was just like,
yeah.
And I think that's what we want to talk about. Not this particular song.
And any of you are like going back and finding this post on there and going, wow, they really blew this out of proportion. Just know that we're taking what was said there and taking it as a larger thing. And so what we're talking about here is just the general problem that we see with these topics that were talked about there.
Yeah, it's not that particular.
They did set me off, but probably not as much as what you're about to hear.
So. Right. And this is, also let's put stuff in perspective. Lauren and I have been in we'll call it the music industry. Mm-hmm. We've been in it for a long time. I mean, longer than a lot of people that probably responded to that. Not all. There's some experienced folks out there. But so this sort of topic isn't something that's just started. And I think that unfortunately in the CCM world, and those of you who don't know what that is contemporary Christian music. It's a very broad thing for music, but for those that are kind of new to it or whatever, or even music as a whole, but they think that for some reason the person that performs the song is the person who writes it, or they have some strange warped thing in their head of how the music industry works, right? And so I think, and again, Lauren, correct me if I'm not speaking, I don't want to speak for you, but when we see posts like this, it sets us off because nothing has changed.
Right.
And this isn't anything new. And it's weird that people get angry about it. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
So when you read this post and you started, the juices start flowing and you're getting angry or whatever, and you're reading these things, what is it? Take us through what it is in particular. And we're not going to go into super deep dives, but what is it that starts you going? Like when you read it, what set you off?
The first thing that jumped out at me was they were one of the first things was they were tearing down K-Love.
Okay.
So K-Love, it's a national radio station. They play Christian music.
Right.
And I've just noticed that some people on worship teams can have this elitist attitude where, K-Love is horrible music and only, the
soccer moms.
And just
there's nothing good on there.
Ignorant people listen to that, right. and there's nothing good, and there's so much better music out there that people should be listening to, and all
which may or may not be true. However, it's very dismissive.
Yeah, completely. So, I mean, I think we've lost perspective. We jump to these things too quickly because my thing about K-Love is, it may not be the music that's on your playlist. Right. It may not be what you like to listen to or what you think is more enlightened music or whatever,
real Christian music.
Right.
Which isn't subjective at all, by the way.
Yeah, and so here's the thing. Christian music as a whole is this huge genre that everything gets piled into.
Right.
Like I said, it's a national radio station going out to everyone. So basically we're trying to reach everyone in the country with all of this music that is kind of the same.
Has similar themes.
Yeah, and have everybody tune in all the time and have it be successful.
Right.
And they've pulled it off. They have a huge listenership.
Right.
And people are calling in all the time about how the radio station was the vehicle that saved their life.
Right. Very
literally.
Impactful. Yeah. I've heard that.
Or that was how they came to know about God or come back to God or just story after story after story. So who are you to dismiss that?
Right.
I mean, this is just another thing that God is using.
Right.
And it's out in the world. Whereas you're hopefully affecting people that are in your church.
Right.
So on that scale, maybe they're doing a bigger thing than you are.
Right.
I'm getting up in your face now, but
he's in your grill, guys. Do you feel him in your grill?
No. So I mean, like I said, it may not be like what you like, but they are doing a good thing, and they may be cheesy compared to like what you would do, but you're not doing it. So
right. So right off the bat, you're like, whoa, back down there. Like, why is Caleb all of a sudden in your sights? Right? Is when they're. It could be argued they're both a ministry and a business.
Yeah.
I mean, let's not mince words here. They are a business. They do need to make money. I think
they work the same way that any radio has always worked,
right.
And they play what people like,
right.
And they run all the stats and everything, and stuff gets played that people want to listen to, and so it's not just them saying, "Hey, here's some horrible music that we like, and you're going to listen to it." Well, it's what everybody likes. So
I will be honest and say I think some of that does creep in, though.
Well, yeah.
There are times I feel like we're being force-fed a few things, but I digress. I don't want to.
That's the music industry.
Yeah, no, and that is it.
Yeah,
I think that's the important takeaway.
How does a song debut at number 1?
Yeah,
on the chart.
I wish
money.
I wish it sounds like a hit. I'm shaking something next to my ear.
Yeah.
I want Christian music. As a business entity, I want Christian music to be different.
Yeah.
In my mind, I want it to be purely like a ministry. Mm-hmm. I want it to be pure in that way.
And
but the reality is,
the only way to do that is if local songwriters only wrote for their church and it stayed in their church.
Yeah.
Never got recorded, never distributed. That's the only way that would work. That's the way it used to be, but we're a much more connected global community now.
Right.
And, people want to do this full time as a career, and most churches can't support that just because. And so,
yeah, and you
get artists that are very talented that are able to share their life's work with everybody.
Right. Now, you just said something that I think is important. You said music as a career, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in my earlier kind of intro statement, I was talking about how Chris Tomlin was kind of the target, and
right.
and lesser, or in the same way, so was Caleb. But taking Caleb as like they're like the entity, but taking a person like Chris
mm-hmm.
Tomlin and kind of sacrificing him on the altar of whatever that these people are sacrificing him on, I think was unfair, because you mentioned music as a career, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I read in that, people were like, "Oh my gosh, he keeps claiming it is his song, and it's not. It's Housefire's song, and that just makes me so angry." And I think on one hand, we're dealing with relatively young, inexperienced people that think that way, but on the other side, I think it's so short-sighted and ignorant, to be completely honest, to think that a artist such as Chris Tomlin, whose job, let me say that again, it's his job to go out, create music, play music, promote, himself. I mean, hey, come on. Yes, he loves the Lord, and yes, he's going to promote Jesus wherever he goes, and he's got ministry stuff tied to him. But at the end of the day, he still makes his paycheck by doing this. So I think it's really stupid, if I can use that word, to think
we have.
I just did. I'm doing it again. To think that Chris Tomlin isn't going to partner or even purchase the rights to record a song. I don't believe he would ever, even as a side note, I don't think he'd ever claim this song as his own as far as I wrote it. I'm sure he'd say, yeah, I recorded it. I sang it. I worked with someone to arrange it in my band, and I did it. I think he'd go that far, but I don't think he'd have. It's silly.
Yeah, and I've fallen into this in the past.
Have you?
Yeah. And, I used to be upset that, some song got covered by somebody. Oh, yeah, I remember what it was.
What was it? Come on.
It's Jeremy Camp.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
He covered Jesus Saves.
Oh, I'm not thinking the same thing than you.
Yeah, so he covered, I think that's Tim Hughes, right? Jesus Saves. Anyway, and they did one of those little radio spots, on Caleb, where they're talking to him about his new hit song.
Right.
And during the whole thing, he's talking as if he wrote the thing, and he's talking about how much it meant to him and blah, 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 all this stuff, and never once mentioned that it was written by somebody else.
Right.
And it infuriated me at the time.
Right.
And so I get where people are coming with this, but like you said, it's kind of dumb. Like, every time you're going to take time to say, yes, this song was written by this person, but I covered it and re-recorded it, and now we can actually answer the question you asked me. Yeah, it's dumb. You're not going to do that every time somebody talks to you about this song.
And
don't be fooled. This person has been paid. The original artist has been paid.
That's it. I was just going to say that. I think it's important to note that don't think House Fires or whoever represents them or whatever their legal entity stuff is, don't think they didn't get paid for Chris Tomlin to cover that song. It's not like
they're probably loving it. It's like, Chris Tomlin wants to play our song? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure someone like Chris Tomlin didn't hear their CD or whatever, and then that's old, that dates me. Sorry. He didn't download their song off iTunes. And then go into his room, figure it out, and then record it and release it. That's so not how it happened at all. Yeah. In fact, he was probably approached by someone to perform the song, if we're being honest. But I think to even broaden this, even outside of the Christian music thing, this is nothing new.
Right.
This happens everywhere. There is a gigantic percentage of songs that I bet if the same people who object, say, to this one particular thing knew anything about, they'd be shocked that the songs that maybe they love an artist that that are not their own. Mm-hmm. There's not something they wrote anyway.
Right.
They may have been written by somebody else and performed exclusively by them, but it doesn't change the fact they didn't write it. And so there's artists out there that have made a song that has been originally recorded by somebody else, way more famous than the original song. Right. Chris Tomlin's probably one of them, but I'm thinking of like Tina Turner.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. I just think it's silly.
Yeah.
To think that's something new.
Well, again, it's getting the song out there to more people that maybe they don't like the style of that other band, or maybe they haven't heard that other band.
Yeah.
So it's getting it out to more people. And don't forget, this is Christian music. This is a vehicle. It's a way to connect people with God. And so if people are having an encounter with God because of this song, then win. Who cares what the...
Prophet. Yeah. No, I don't know. I and also people, it's not his song. I just realized, it's like, well, he paid for it.
Yeah.
So he did buy the rights to the song. So, I mean, while, I think it's a gray area to say it's his song, it's definitely something he has the rights to perform. So he kind of owns the rights to perform that. So what else? All right. So we have blaming K-Love. We have blaming Chris Tomlin.
Yeah.
Kind of putting them on the pyre of hate.
Well, and we touched on it a little bit, but just the whole animosity there seems to be towards Christian artists making money. It's like, he's just doing this song to make money. Well, yeah, he's a professional musician.
Right. Of course he is.
He makes a living recording songs.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone... It's funny because I think the same people who would object, say, to that, who are in like worship teams or whatever, bands or whatever, I'm pretty sure that if you turned the tables on them and said, fine, we're going to pay you to do this full time, I don't think many of them would go like, no, I can't do that. It would totally spoil the art. It would get rid of what God said. No, it's awesome. You get paid to play guitar now. Go glorify God with that. I don't see what the problem is there.
Now you have to work even harder.
Pretty much. Yeah, you thought your job was hard before. Now there's an expectation on you, yeah.
That's the thing. I mean, like him or not, or, think he's old and washed up or whatever, but Chris Tomlin is an anointed writer and leader.
Yep.
And, he's been a huge impact on Christian music for quite a long time. And, you can't really tear that down.
Yeah. I think, I understand when...
And it could be anybody's name.
We're Chris Tomlin's just...
Him
Yeah.
Just because of the thing.
Totally. Yeah, he's not the only person people pick on. And
see, now if he had a beard...
he'd be cool.
Then, he'd be okay.
And skinny jeans.
Yeah.
See? Look at, we just made some people mad just then.
Like, that's what he needs to do. He needs to grow a beard.
He does, a beard.
Then he'd be relevant again.
Thick rimmed glasses. He needs a scarf.
Man bun.
Yeah. I understand. Like, I don't want people to get me, or I won't speak for you, but I think you're in the same boat. I get when this kind of entitlement thing comes up when people in the Christian worship world, or what do you want to call it, get upset at folks like Chris Tomlin for, I don't know, vanilla-izing the music or selling out or, all those things you can pin on it term-wise. Like, I understand that because it seems like when you're playing in a church for people directly and you're not, doing concerts and whatever, it feels pure. It feels like you're doing something that's closer to the art form, or you want to call it, that's worshiping God. I get that. I understand that mentality, but I think, like you had mentioned earlier, Lauren, we as worship musicians, or however you want to define us, need to take a step or even 2 or 3 or 4 back from this and realize that this is a much larger thing than just what we do on Sunday mornings, and that God has anointed other people that are not doing what we're doing, and they're going out and still moving the kingdom forward as far as what we can do here. And God has anointed their ministries, whether we like it or not, whether they're making more money than we are or not, and are, kind of sending them into the world. So I'm with you. I think that we need to support, step back and support the reality of that and not get hung up on this whole thing. But I do understand that kind of we play everything so close to the chest sometimes in the church because we're so entwined with it. It's so close to us, It's hard to understand if it's your job. Like, you're not doing every Sunday morning church, you're touring the world, or every day you're doing a radio interview or 12 and you're promoting and you're recording and you're flying somewhere, and it's different, but they're removed from it in a different way, and that they have a job to do. And I think it's just unfair of us to, sorry, that was a rant. I just went, but yeah, I don't know. Okay. So, Chris Tomlin's evil, right? We got that. we made K-Love is horrible. Millennials have whatever problem we have with them. I'm making sure I'm counting off
hitting all the points. Yeah.
I'm making sure that I'm counting on my hand for those who can't see. Who else?
For those that you can't see. I'm the only one that can see.
That's true. So, let me hold it up for you, Lauren. See, 3? I got 3. Let's go deeper.
Yeah. I think there's a deeper problem here. It's not as much the specifics of what we're talking about as we're just very quick to jump to those positions now. Any little thing and we become contrary.
So anything that comes up and having to do with Christian music, or?
Pretty much. It's like, whether it's gear or, or, some church that did something different, or, what music style, or whatever. Okay. It's just, it seems like it's just way too easy now for people to just jump on it and bash it, tear it down, have a problem with it. Like I said, without even considering its little role, its piece in the huge puzzle.
Yeah.
God's got so many ways to reach his people. He's reaching out in so many ways, through you, through me, through all these other people. And, we just play this tiny little role. We never know how we're going to affect somebody. It may be 20 steps down the line from that one little contact that we had with this person that they actually accept Christ. Mm-hmm. But it was a key role because that one led to the next one and led to the next one, led to the next one till their heart was finally soft enough, or they finally realized.
But we don't even see that, yeah.
Yeah, and so you can't dismiss any of this. I mean, we can say, oh, that's not biblical, or this, maybe that's not a good way to go about this, but.
Well, if we're going biblical, we bring up something called fruit.
Yeah.
And if we want to get real hardcore, you can start comparing fruit.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying everyone's perfect, but, using Chris Tomlin again, let's look at his fruit.
Yeah.
Let's look at the fruit of those that may criticize him. Now, I'm not saying that those people are necessarily evil or something, but you can't, if you're going to judge somebody, do it biblically and look at the fruit.
Yeah.
And you can't.
Yeah, let's get rid of these petty differences.
Yeah, it's stupid. And honestly, I think that we literally just like taglined the entire podcast. Not this one, but every one we've ever done and every one we will do. Because I think that's what we talk about on this.
Yeah.
Is this petty crap that seems to seed its way in the church. And I'm going to go real crazy here. So this is a part that this may set somebody off, including you, Lauren. I think that all of the stuff we talk about, obviously, it's fairly shallow. I mean, it's, like we don't go super, super deep. But if we were using that as a diagnostic tool, the things we talk about for maybe the disease that plagues the church, and I mean the church like a whole, I would start to go down the road of a diagnosis of just complete biblical and theological atrophy. And I think that the people that's going to make the most mad are the people that raise their hands the highest on Sunday morning, because I think that we somehow judge or somehow rate our, I don't know, spirituality, Christianity, whatever, by how spiritual it feels. And so that tends to lead toward, and I don't mean to judge churches as a whole, but you get the idea, like these mega church super worship churches, that all that really matters to them is the time when the music is playing. And again, I'm painting with a very broad brush. I understand that. But do you know what I mean? Like I don't want to name any names, but like just man, I was feeling worship today. Like that's the extent of their theology. Right. And I think that while, yes, there's a time and a place, of course, for worship. That's silly to think it's not. But I think that's where, like if you had circles drawn around what's important to these people in churches, the largest one is around worship. And by that, I mean musical worship. And I think that that's where it stems from, because all of us in the church don't shut that down appropriately. Not shut it down because it's bad, but shut it down saying your focus is in the wrong place. And I think that causes us, when we're in that, to look at other things in this crazy judgmental way that has nothing to do with anything biblical or theologically sound. Like it's just this crazy high calorie, low, what I mean? And so I would say that the crux of a lot of this, and I know that it probably branches out in other ways, but the crux of most of everything we talk about tends to be from the meat and potatoes is pulled out of the church, as it were, and we have a very high carb, high sugar, empty calorie church now. And it looks awesome in high def. And it looks awesome with the lights on. And it sounds incredible when we download it. But like it's all filler. There's not a whole lot of substance there. And so I think that we tend to see the result of that. And again, I understand that everything I'm talking about is distilled into these groups that we're talking about, like Facebook groups. But
even recently, my pastor was talking about how, before service, he's out front greeting with everybody else. And he gets into these conversations with people that are coming in that, talk about the services, or even on the way out or whatever. It's like, worship was so good today. I really needed that. Or, really looking forward to the worship today. I just really need this. And it's like, it just cringes. It's like, do you realize it's not for you?
Yeah.
It's us bringing worship to God. If this is what fills you up, then what's happening in your week? Because this,
and I think that also points out a complete misunderstanding of who we are in comparison to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Like, or at least our position in things. It tends to not put you in a thankful position. It tends to put you in a judgmental one, very self-centered. And I think that was a brilliant way of putting that, because I think that without really trying. I don't think that any church set out to create these bubbles or whatever. I don't think it was a purposeful thing. But that's why folks like, I'm going to full on bash somebody right now. Folks like Joel Osteen destroy Christianity because the package, and he's not the only one, but the package of that is what people think they're buying when they become Christian.
Right.
Instead of the reality, which is you're a wretched, fallen thing that has a deep, 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 uncontrollable need and desire for a savior and can't do anything on their own without a savior. Right. So that like misunderstanding is what I think causes those folks to say, well, I really needed that. Oh, I feel great. And it makes me upset because it's like, we need to fix that as a church. We need to go, no. Let's sit down and talk about this because
we're not talking about the people that are unsaved coming in and, having that revelation. And then, they're like, oh, wow, I needed to have that encounter with God because I now know that. No, we're talking about the every Sunday Christians, the ones who've been Christians for a long time, the ones who should know better, but they're just consuming. They're just like, okay, what can I get from worship today? How is this going to fill my tank?
And I think we excuse it.
Yeah.
Because it fills seats.
Yeah.
And we all love full seats. And it's infuriating because it's going to do nothing but tear the church down as far as, internally we're going to implode. It does nothing to serve the kingdom. It does nothing to serve Jesus. Nothing. It's embarrassing. And so, we've gotten a little off topic, but I think it's important to, at least for me anyway, point out that that's where this anger comes from. That like you're so vapid in your walk with Christ that your target is Chris Tomlin, the guy who's going and telling everyone about Jesus. And I get that it's not 100% there, but as far as that comparison goes, but you know what I mean? Like there's so many better places to be angry. Anyway.
Yeah. When I was just kind of dumping all of this out of my head when I saw this, I ended my first paragraph with, we have become such a cynical, elitist culture. We need to cut this cancer out of our churches right now or it will lead to death.
Yeah.
That was kind of my summary.
I think that's a great way of putting it. And I know that the listeners right now, there's probably some of them right now that are just hot. If they've even gotten this far in the podcast, I'll be honest. I think there's probably people who turned us off at this point. But we don't to kind of pull it back into this whole Academy of Worship thing. I don't want, and I don't think Lauren wants, and you can speak to this, Lauren, in a second. We don't want this podcast to be part of that empty calorie stuff. We don't want it to be. The reason we even talk about half, if not all of the stuff we talk about is to get the juices flowing the other way, is to point out this stuff that is the cancerous stuff that we need to cut out. And I think that we as worship musicians, worship leaders, ministry leaders, we have this heavy burden. That's our job. We can't let this stuff go on. And I think that's why we point that out, because we see it and it's like crazy. And
we're not shock jocks. This is a heart check.
Yeah, and it's as much of a heart check for Lauren and I as it is for anyone listening. I mean, it's not like we're perfect at all. I struggle with all of this stuff. It's not like I've never thought any of the stuff we've just talked about. But
yeah, I've been in these conversations, and that's why I can talk about this, because I've been through it and realized, oh, wait a minute, what are we doing? So I can come out the other end and go, yeah, don't even go down that road, because I can tell you it's not worth it.
It never is. It's never worth it. Lauren and I had an agreement that we were going to keep this podcast relatively short, and we're coming basically to the end of the time, because we realized we were making podcasts. At first it was like half hour, 35 minutes, then all of a sudden it's 50, 55. So we were creeping up on an hour for a few of the podcasts, and I think we're going to start pulling it back and keep it a little more succinct and whatnot. But you never know. We'll have some longer ones.
Unless we have, somebody in. We really want to.
That's always fun.
Get the most out of that.
6-7 hours.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Not even going to give them water.
It'll be the Lord of the Rings podcast. Yeah. Yeah. No.
Sap them for everything they're worth.
That's right. But I think Lauren nailed it. Heart check is kind of where we're at as far as a podcast. We know we ramble, and we know that we kind of go down, we start with one topic and kind of, we veer out and then we veer back and we get that. But we really appreciate you guys sticking with us. We know that we seem to keep adding numbers to the listeners, and I'm hoping that's because we are talking about this stuff, and we're not just letting it drop as being like, oh, a funny thing I saw online. But like you said, a heart check. And hopefully we as a group that are starting to form, I guess, I hope you guys are spreading that as well. And hopefully this is making you think. Because honestly, I know for myself, if I hear somebody talking and something, digs or pierces something or gets me kind of, oh man, it makes me think and makes me check myself, because maybe I'm the one who is the problem and not the person who said it. And maybe not. I'm fully admitting that it could be just me and you guys think I'm a jerk and I am a jerk. So, but
Yeah, I think if anybody out there has somebody on their team that has the gift of encouragement and edifying and all of that, just really encourage those people to strengthen that, to build that, and to use it with the team. Speak life.
Yeah.
You have no idea when somebody's gifted in that and they use it, it's amazing. Yeah. It just brings the whole team up. And
it's an awesome gift.
Yeah.
We also want to encourage you too that your job when it comes to the worship, music, support, whatever, is your church. Your mission field is your town and your church. Don't think any bigger than that right now. I mean, it's okay to think bigger than that, because I know we're told to go into the world and do the stuff. But your first responsibility is to your friends, your family, your schools, your workplaces, your church family. Start there and don't worry about everything else, because trust me, God's got it handled. We want to encourage you to start thinking less globally right now when you go to church next or when you serve next or whatever you do, and start thinking locally. Because like Lauren was saying earlier, you don't know the impact you have on one person. And you also don't want to miss an opportunity to impact somebody because your eyes are somewhere else.
Yeah.
So don't start playing the game that you're not where you're supposed to be, because I promise you are. We all are.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and really everyone's going to answer for the gifts that they were given and used or misused in their life by God later. It's not your job.
Yeah.
So worry about the gifts He's given you and what you're doing with them and how you're moving the kingdom forward. Yep. And that's going to be enough. Not
how Chris Tomlin and K-Love is.
Right.
Worry about how you're doing it. Yeah. I like that. That's a good way to end it. Keep it real, guys. So yeah, if you guys want to yell at us for anything that we say, or you want to thank us for anything we say, I don't know, if you just want to follow us for anything we do, we have a couple places online that you can go ahead and give us a like or a whatever, depending on the platform of choice. The original launching point, which I keep saying is going to be more someday, where Lauren and I have been talking about it, we're hoping to launch some new stuff soon, is YouTube. This is where this whole thing started, honestly. You can go to youtube.com/Academy of Worship. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Academy of Worship Online. And you can find us, our actual podcast itself, on its hosting provider, which is academyofworship.podomatic.com. And give us a follow anywhere there. And yeah, we'd love to talk with you guys and stuff. But it's fun. I don't know what we accomplished today, but we said some stuff into microphones.
Yeah, we got some stuff out, and hopefully we didn't bring everyone down, but
nah, we do want to encourage you guys. So hopefully no one, if all this stuff ended up being super heavy and horrible, then we're sorry.
But write to us. Give us some suggestions of what you want to hear.
Yeah. If you guys got some stuff, please hit us up on one of those platforms and holler at us for what we could be talking about, because we don't always have the right answers. No, we do. Just kidding. We have all the right answers. Okay, anyway.
We have answers anyway.
Yeah, they're answers at the end of it. All right. Anyway, we had a good time today. We thank you for joining us on the Academy of Worship podcast. I'm Chris Davis.
I'm Lauren Levisor.
And we will talk to you next time.
Bye.